Heading into Saturday, it didn't look like the most exciting slate of college football. But boy, oh boy, that sucker overachieved as we had some tight finishes and close calls. We're going to go over all that today. But what's crackalackin' is your boy Baroshmo, just in case you did not know so. And here's my college football top 25. And hang with me till the end of the video because I'm going to go over my top 5 Heisman contenders. Let's go ahead, get into the top 25. With Wisconsin being a faller here, even though that they won. We're going to go over, of course, the teams that fell out of the top 25 first. And you know what? Wisconsin just didn't have an impressive showing. They played a very close game against Georgia Southern, and they didn't really pull away from Georgia Southern until they decided to run the freaking football. I feel like Braylon Allen's having a down year just because of the system. Really ticks me off. And to be fair, like the Wisconsin defense really came through, 5 interceptions on that game. But I'm just, this team, I had them high. I think they were like 12 or maybe 11 in my preseason top 25, just because I looked at their schedule and it was kind of sorry. It really was. Like their toughest game was a home game against Ohio State, but outside of that, the Big Ten play didn't look too scary. And I thought that Washington State game could be close, but I thought this was a good enough team, and with Luke Fickell there, that they'd be able to overcome that. They couldn't, but I was willing to, like, you know what? I could see them bouncing back. Again, not too worried about their conference schedule. And that just slow start against Georgia Southern. And I'm just like, and I know a lot of teams had slow starts this this past weekend, but man, Wisconsin, they were already hanging by a thread last week, and I gotta knock them out this week. And then Tennessee's my other faller, as it just felt like they were physically manhandled by Florida, losing 29-16. And granted, this is a Florida team that looked much better since losing to Utah, who didn't have Cam Rising or Brant Kuthi. So like they've really put this team together. Like they've bounced back pretty quickly. And honestly, this was a team like Florida. Now we're talking, instead of talking about Tennessee, I'm talking about Florida. This is a team that I didn't expect much from, but I like what I've seen the last couple of weeks. This is a big game right here against Tennessee, and they came out and they performed well there in the swamp. So this is, I don't know, man, give them a few weeks. Maybe they sneak into this top 25. But Tennessee, they just haven't looked good this season. They really haven't. Like, oh, they blew out Virginia. Everyone's blowing out Virginia. Like, that wasn't impressive. They struggled at home against, Austin Peay. And then again, just physically manhandled in the trenches. Joe Milton looked inaccurate, and yeah, I just don't feel they're a top 25 team as of right now. My top 5 teams that just missed it, I have Memphis here. Memphis has been here for a little while. I think they're gonna be one of the they're gonna be like a top 3 team in my opinion in the American Conference, especially with UTSA now just kind of faltering. And it really felt like in that Navy game, they only won 28-24, but it felt like they kept bringing Navy back into that game. It really, really did. They had a chance to close it at the goal line with Blake Watson, and they fumbled, and it led to a scoring drive by Navy. And luckily, the Memphis defense, to be fair, in that game, both teams really had costly turnovers, but the Memphis defense was able to stop Navy short on 4th down to secure the win there. But I'm trying to look for more impressive wins before I shoot this team in the top 25. TCU, they're still hanging around here. Their offensive just exploded against Houston, winning 36-13. Kansas had to hold off, at least this night, a game Nevada team, winning 31-24. So again, not that impressive to really pole vault them. UCLA though, they've had, I know, cupcake game. They ran through North Carolina Central 59-7. Still, this team's looking good. A lot of my questions came from, okay, how will they look offensively? And now that we're getting into conference play, or at least for the Pac-12 we are. They have a big game. This weekend, right? Yeah, they have a big game Saturday against Utah. And I'm kind of curious if that Utah team doesn't have Cam Rising or Brant Kuithe, then that's UCLA's to win. It's a tough environment though, having to go into Salt Lake City. And then Clemson, they're looking better. They ran through Florida Atlantic. I'm willing to have this team kind of sit on the edge and potentially jump back in. They have a big opportunity. They get Florida State, but in Death Valley. So that could be a big win for a Florida State team that looked vulnerable against Boston College. So I got Clemson just kind of sitting here. I could kind of like run off a couple of teams that I considered putting in this just missed it category, as I got Kentucky, Louisville, Iowa, BYU, with the big win against Arkansas, and then James Madison, and then I talked about Florida. But let's go ahead and get to this top 25, as I have Arkansas here at 25 as being another team I thought would do really well this season, and then they had this letdown loss. I mean, this is their second year straight facing BYU, and this time BYU got the best of them. Keaton Slovis came into town. Not even came into town. I think they went to Salt Lake City, but Salt Lake City. That's not where BYU is. But I can't name another city in Utah. BYU location, please. Provo, Utah. Okay, so fun fact. Sorry, not up to date on my Utah cities, but Arkansas went into there. They were pretty careless with the football. I mean, they were able to stay in it because of their offense, but missing Raheem Sanders kind of was a big thing, and they just got shocked. On the last drive to tie the ball game up, they committed 4 penalties, including one on the final play, and Arkansas just kept shooting themselves in the foot in that game. Washington State, they're here. They're in the top 25. And they went out and had a beautiful win against a cupcake team in northern Colorado. And hey, man, Washington State, man, maybe they're for real. But again, the Pac-12, I do think they're going to kind of kill one another. And that's why we won't see them in the college football playoff. At least that's my prediction. They will have Oregon State, kind of a big top 25 showdown this week. Miami, Thursday night annihilated Bethune-Cookman. They looked great. They should have. They're slowly inching up my list. Who do they got this upcoming week? Temple. And Temple had a huge win just Saturday too, I think. Tulane, again, still without Michael Pratt. They got things done, beating Southern Miss 21-3. I'm hoping Pratt can return. I really do think Tulane's the best team in the American Conference. But if they can't get their quarterback back, then it's just gonna be tough for them to stay here in the top 25. And then Kansas State here at 21, they fell to Mizzou as time expired. Harrison Mevis. I don't know. Dude kicked a 61-yard field goal as time expired. It was amazing. Luther Burden was a burden on the Wildcat defense. He ended up having 7 receptions for like 114 yards, 2 tutties. And Kansas State, man, they got caught in a shootout. But when it came down to it, that Memphis defense was able to hone it in, lock it in. A lot of people say this is like a top 3, top 5 defense in the SEC in terms of did I say Memphis? Mizzou. So good on Mizzou. Kansas State, they fall. I still think they're one of the top teams though in the Big 12. Moving to number 20, I do have Mizzou. They're 3-0. Granted, okay, a week ago, Middle Tennessee gave them problems. Not ideal, but beating a top 25 team here is a big deal. Will things get easier for Mizzou? I don't believe that it will, as we're all starting to start SEC play. As Mizzou next week, they get Memphis. Ooh, Ooh, that's going to be low key. Could be a little fun. I do think Mizzou probably wins that ball game. Arkansas, they have a chance to redeem themselves. Actually, they got LSU next week, and I think that's in Death Valley as well. So, Godspeed to both those teams. Colorado coming here in 19, man. They had won a nutty game against Colorado State as it went down to the wire. Matter of fact, it went down to double overtime. It truly was an insane end to the game. If you didn't know, they lost Travis Hunter like midway through the first quarter on a dirty hit downfield. He's going to be gone the next few weeks, which kind of sucks because Colorado has Oregon and then USC. So that terrible. But you know what? Shadur Sanders was able to keep this team in the ball game and win it for them. Listen, Boulder, I think didn't they have all of like 2 wins last season? They're 3-0 right now. So it's like Prime has already exceeded last year. And I know the expectations are high. I have a hard time believing that they can go up against juggernaut teams like Oregon and USC. But let's see, man. Let's see. Deion's doing a wonderful job here at Colorado. Duke here at number 18. They basically just beat the piss out of Northwestern with a nice balanced attack. Riley Leonard, a guy that can get it done with his arm and with his feet. They win 38-13. Interesting little tidbit. All 3 of their wins this season have been by 20 points or more. And I mean, we're talking Northwestern. It's like, okay, it's just Northwestern, but the other team being Clemson, so kind of big for them. At number 17, I have Ole Miss. They needed a big fourth quarter to really pull away. I believe they had 24 unanswered points or something in that fourth quarter. But they ended up being Georgia Tech 48-23. Jackson Dart had a really good game, especially on the ground. He ran for over 136 yards and 2 tutties. Oregon State, they controlled San Diego State with their defense. They won it 26-9. I know people are going to look at the DJU 2 interceptions. One was actually his fault, the other not his. I think DJU has played very good for Oregon State, and now he will be tested having to travel to Washington State in a very big matchup. At number 15, I have Utah. I'm hoping they get Cam Rising back. I don't like this is a really good squad. If they could get their top weapon back and Brant Kuthi, that's huge. The defense is really good for Utah, and honestly, this would be a shame if Utah goes into this game with no Cam Rising at the very least. That would just suck. But man, Utah, they've been getting it done. They beat the brakes off of Weber State. We got North Carolina here at 14. Drake May slinging it against Minnesota. Did have a few errant passes where he's just not seeing the man underneath. But they end up beating Minnesota 31-13. So they come here at 14 for me. LSU moves up to number 13 as they railed Mississippi State 41-14. Malik Neighbors had a phenomenal game where he was like 13 receptions for over 230 yards, 2 touchdowns. Could have had a third one, but just got stopped short of the goal line. I think Jaden Daniels, he was like 30-34 in this game. It was a fabulous offensive performance. And again, LSU, they kind of get a big game against Arkansas this weekend as they begin SEC play. And you can make a case that they're the best team in the SEC at this point, though I think Georgia still kind of is that guy. Alabama, they got questions. We got Oklahoma here at number 12. They blew out Tulsa before they start conference play, I believe next weekend. Against Cincinnati, who they lost in overtime against Miami, Ohio. I imagine Oklahoma is going to have a field day unless Emory Jones has one of those on games. But yeah, Oklahoma, they did one heck of a job. My top 11 remains unchanged. I have Alabama here at 11. Listen, I know you're going to look at that 17-3 ball game against South Florida and you're going to be like, well, shoot. that's not good for Alabama. And yes and no. Listen, that game was a total mess. Like the rain pour was insane. But they do have a quarterback problem. Ty Simpson came in and looked all right. He'll probably be the quarterback for the game against Ole Miss, I imagine, unless they go back to Jalen Milroe. It's going to be very interesting, but Alabama, they were able to get by South Florida at the very least. The top 10, again, remains unchanged. Michael Penix, 4 tutties against Michigan State, and the Mel Tuckerless Spartans beat the brakes off them 41-17. We're going to talk about Michael Penix when we get to the Heisman contender section. Notre Dame, they were able to pull away in the second half, pull away from Central Michigan. A lot of these top teams did have slow starts, so I'm not going to be like too hard on them. Again, we're about to start all this conference play. Unless you're Notre Dame, then you don't care about conference play. But they won 41-17. Big matchup this weekend against Ohio State, and that one will be it'll be at Notre Dame. So it's gonna be a South Bend. So Godspeed. We'll talk about Sam Hartman too when we get to the Heisman contender section. Penn State, they're here. They beat Illinois 30-13. The offense looked very stagnant in this game. However, Penn State's defense was phenomenal. Oregon coming in here at number 7. They had a cupcake game against Hawaii, winning 55-10. Not much to talk about there. Again, they will be hosting Colorado next weekend in our watch along game, so be there for that. Next, I got USC. They had a bye this week, a well-deserved rest. They will be taking on Arizona State, so not too big. They're currently 33.5 point favorites. So, but after that, they get Colorado. So, hey, Pac-12 conference plays here, baby. My top 5, again, remains unchanged. Texas, they started out really slow against Wyoming, but hey, this is a Wyoming team that beat Texas Tech. Texas Tech pushed Oregon to the limit, so it's real back on, Wyoming is not that great of a team. And okay, they're not a great team, but I think they're a solid team there in the Mountain West. Texas, they were able to get 3 fourth quarter touchdowns via Quinn Ewers. So they ended up pulling away after being tied at 10 going into the fourth. Pull away 31-10. Ohio State, they ran through Western Kentucky. Kyle McCord, he is now the official starter. They're not going to be playing with this nonsense. They're like, okay, no, you're our guy. Good luck. Florida State, they had an injury. Listen, Boston College really pushed this squad. I guess Florida State, maybe they got caught looking ahead. They were 26.5 point favorites, and they almost lost this game. Jordan Travis, he did get banged up nearing halftime, but he came back and returned at the start of the second half. It was a very unimpressive performance by Florida State. They held on to the win, though. They'll get Clemson this week. So, hey, this is a team that saw as a very good victory over LSU. Michigan, they pulled away in the third quarter against Bowling Green. They ended up winning 31-6. Remember, good teams win, great teams cover. That's why I took Bowling Green plus 40.5, and I hit, baby. J.J. McCarthy, though, didn't look great in this game. 3 interceptions. We'll see how he looks next week as they take on Rutgers, which will be the last game without Jim Harbaugh. It's Jim, right? Yeah, it's Jim. I always get them confused, which is which. I mean, Jim, John, come on, they're J names. Georgia, they're the number 1, man. They started out slow against South Carolina in another rainy game, but they took complete control in the second half. They scored 21 unanswered, and Spencer Rattler legit couldn't do anything. Unfortunately, early in that game, Spencer Rattler did lose. Juice Wells is, I guess the foot's causing him more problems. might have a broken bone in that, which, I mean, he came into the season kind of like having an issue in his foot. They had to put a screw in it, so not good. Something maybe in terms of our like stock report for his like draft projection, something we're gonna have to take note of. But yeah, Georgia, they remain number 1 here. I think they're kind of the clear favorite when in this sucker. Listen, I know you love the NFL draft as much as I do, and you're gonna want a nice hefty watch list of players during this college football season. Well, go ahead, check out my draft guide. You can purchase it for only 30 bucks by Venmoing or PayPaling me. Links in the description. It's a one-time payment and you get it for this whole draft cycle and forever and always. Technically, it's a Google spreadsheet, so send me your email when you send the payment. I'll get you hooked up. You will see my current prospect rankings and big board, my full evals, and guess what? It updates throughout the whole draft cycle. So it's a great purchase and it's a great way to support the channel. We're talking top Heisman contenders, and we're starting with Sam Hartman, who had a very impressive outing against Central Michigan as they prepare to host Ohio State. That's going to be the best defense he probably sees all season. So I'm very eager to see how he performs here, and if he could just continue to inch up higher on this list. I think he has the most touchdowns in college football currently at like 13 or something. At number 4, got Quinn Ewers. It wasn't the prettiest victory for Texas, but he did have all 3 of their touchdowns. Again, 11-21, not an impressive performance, but he got it done nonetheless. Maybe this is just kind of like I'm pulling from the hype of the Alabama game last week, but I didn't feel right knocking him off this list. But I think right now the top 3 are undisputed. These are probably going to be everyone's top 3. It really depends on, like, I bet you the order is going to be shuffled up for all of us. But I got Shedeur Sanders coming here. No Travis Hunter, no problem. They were able to get the job done there in Colorado State. This dude's just so poised in the pocket. He processes the field so well, and he really gives the secondary players the eye candy and makes them go where he wants them to go. Throwing for 4 touchdowns Saturday night. Number 2 is Michael Penix. He continues to have a big year. 4 tutties, 473 yards against Michigan State. Very, very impressive outing. And then my number 1 remains unchanged. He did not play this past weekend, but he will take on Arizona State coming up on the season. He has 13 total tutties, 1 rushing, 12 passing, and this level of play from him isn't surprising. He is like the consensus number 1 overall pick for the 2024 NFL draft, or at least by a lot of people, he is the consensus. But that's it for the video. Go ahead, do the YouTube thing as always. Until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.